Are we filming? Yes, we are. I believe we are. So thank you for joining me in another podcast episode. Before we start, let me just show you what I'm predominantly using this week. This is not limited to these two, but what I am doing this week is my plotter, which I'm using as a diary or an agenda, if you like, and a series of to-do lists and a notebook. And then I was in here, which is a slimline, vintage slimline, and now I'm in Guildford's because it's just quite floppy and it's really old, probably 2007, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Forgive me, I haven't bothered checking, and it's really in poor condition. There's lots of leather flaking going on, as you know, which is synonymous with the Guildford model. But I love it. In fact, I love it so much that I am about to pick up a second one that I acquired a few days ago on eBay, which I'll share with you in a few days' time, perhaps. But that's what I'm using. One thing that I'm also using is this. I mean, you can get these sort of pouches. This is a very, very cheap one. I think it cost me about £5 or £6 on eBay about a year ago. I've got a few of these, but this particular one, and it's a no-name version, so you'd have to check, actually fits at least my personal size. Let me just try it again, because I thought I'll just demonstrate it. So it's in here. Let me do it on screen, and then you can zip it up. And it's a bit of a tight fit, but it works. And I have been using this because I've been on trains and in vans because of this house move that I'm involved in at the moment. And I have actually found this quite useful because you can carry a few pens and stuff, and loose paperwork. This is actually, I mean, I'm going to talk about this more because this is the first real time I've actually used this from a paper-based productivity point of view. Normally these are for leads, charging leads. And if you are a YouTuber, then you'll have lots of leads and chargers and bits and pieces, SD cards. And I've been experimenting with maybe half a dozen of these, all shapes and sizes. And it had occurred to me. I just thought, I was sitting there having a coffee moment, and I thought, actually, I wonder whether my personal size fits in there. And I was, as you know, I've been using this Filofaxes Heritage Compact as a long-term test, although I'm not using it right this minute, but that, as a tight squeeze, goes in here. But it's better with a slimline, and it's even better with a Guildford personal size. So that actually works. And of course it means that I can have all sorts of stuff in here, all in one place. The idea is growing on me, Anyway, back to the podcast, because normally, and this is no exception, I answer your comments, which lead to further discussion, as we know, and that's something I really enjoy. So first thing, a channel viewer says, "Hi Neil, hello Neil, question, how would you organise a mini and an A5 planner to use as a GTD setup? I'm looking to move away from digital. I currently use Things 3. I've not heard of that. Digital sucks all the focus from my studies." I totally get that. I have a foot in both camps because I do use for long-term use and as a backup Apple's calendar app. And I use voice memos on my phone and then transfer it. But it is, I mean, I've got several foots in both camps. several feet. But let me go back several years, at least a decade. in another lifetime, on another channel, I was talking about using a filofax to practice, to follow the principles of GTD. GTD stands for Getting Things Done. It was a methodology coined by David Allen. And essentially, the as I understand it, because I'm not a GTD expert, it was a very, very useful thing where you could categorize, you could list tasks by context, which was very useful back in the day when we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have mobile phones, for instance, although mobile phones were still around. You know, they started, I've had a mobile phone since 1994. So 30 years I've had a mobile phone now. So they're not new these days, are they? Although, I wish I had a photograph of it. The mobile phone I had a base unit and a curly cord to a handset, which you then replaced on the cradle. But that's how it was in those days. The very first digital service, and I'm still with the same service provider now as I did with that brick of a phone 30 years ago. So anyway, GTD, using a mini, how would you organise a mini and an A5 planner to use as a GTD setup? Well, the viewer is very, very specific, and I promised I would discuss this in my next podcast. So here we are. So the gentleman is using a mini-sized binder and an A5. How would I do it? I'm not going to discuss the pros and cons of GTD, because obviously the viewer is using GTD. That is his decision, not mine. So where are we with that? Given the fact that there are, given the fact that the way GTD is framed from at least a paper-based productivity point of view, how would I do it? Well, I would say you're not going to be carrying by inference, you're not going to be carrying your A5 all the time, but you're probably going to be carrying your mini-sized binder all the time. So what do you need if you want to, what would you need in here to refer to several times a day? Well, I would say you need some sort of agenda, a calendar, if you like, a mini planner, so that you know what you're doing from a day-to-day or even an hour-to-hour basis. But you also, and this is crucial for GTD, you need an inbox, and it could be a digital one, but in this case it's a paper-based version. So you need some note paper so that you can gather these notes. And David Allen once used the analogy of a basket, where, you know, maybe even a literal basket, where you could have more than one inbox, like a notebook and maybe another notebook, and you could literally toss those pieces of paper, throw them into a basket, either a real one or a virtual one, some way of gathering notes. So I would say, using your mini-sized binder, you must have some plain paper so you can write notes. I would say, from my personal experience, I do not need to know what I'm doing this time next year in here, because that would mean that I would need a format that might be like a week to a page, and so the space available would be very, very small. Personally, with mine, I have a 3-month diary. That's what I'm working on at the moment, where I have one month in arrears and 2 months in advance. So effectively, I can look back and see what I've done over the previous month. And it's still in there before it slips off the end of the system to be archived. And 2 months in advance, I would say that, at least for me, that's good enough. And if I need a specific date more advanced than that, I will just write it on a piece of paper and have it right at the very back. So at the moment, my last date is Monday the 25th, 26th, 27th. If I had anything after the 28th of November, I'm recording this in late August 2024, then I would just take a piece of paper out of the front, add the date and what I want doing, and put it on here. So there's flexibility there. But I think having a diary and having a notebook are the two most important things. Now, it might be the case that you're using a to-do list as well, and I do in here, because then you can categorize important tasks that are not date specific, but you can categorize them in order of priority. So things you must do now or as soon as possible, all the way down to maybe a someday maybe, but I don't have a someday maybe list in here. And a someday maybe list is part of the GTD system as set out by David Allen. So I would have those 2 or 3 things, those constituent parts of a GTD system in my mini binder that I would carry at all times. And then what I would do with my A5. Now I do have A5 binders. I have a few, but I don't really use them very often. So I can't really advise, but if I was using a mini stroke A5 system, I think what I would do is there are times when there are times when you need something more than just a one-liner. And for me, let me take out my effectively a project book. Now, bearing in mind, I'm not really a GTD disciple anymore. I used to be, but things have moved on for me, mainly because for me, I don't have to store up. I have a phone in my pocket, so I don't have to save up phone calls to do all in one go. I don't have to get back to the base unit computer with internet access in my office or my studio or my house. I can just use it on my smartphone. So the introduction of being able to ring at any time and consult or email at any time kind of made me shift from GTD to a sort of more of a hybrid system. But I think GTD still has some validity. But the key is you can make it your own. But I don't use A5 personally. I have personal size and a mini size. But in here, if I just imagine that this is A5, so the gentleman is using A5. He's obviously got a little bit more paper real estate to work on projects and doing mind maps and just making notes in general. I'm a little bit more limited with personal, but it works for me. But you have more scope if you are able to have space for an A5 binder, either because it's permanently on your desk at home or your office, or you have a backpack and you can carry it in your backpack or your bag. Then essentially, if I was using an A5 version, I would do exactly the same as what I'm doing here. So in here right now are projects. Each project is in alphabetical order, and I have a prompt in here if I want to remember to consult a project on a specific day. And in here at the moment is all the projects pertaining to moving house. And and the personal size works for me. But I'm sure that the equivalent of that is using A5 if you so wish. Of course, as we know, and just as a side issue, one of the big advantages of A5, apart from the fact you've got a massive increase in space, paper size, is the fact that it's very, very easy to make your own paper, because it just involves cutting an A4 sheet in half. Whereas with personal size sheets, it's unless you're buying them pre-cut and pre-printed, then it's a little bit more involved. But that's how I would do it. I would have an agenda or a diary, a calendar in here, and I would in my case, I'm using 50 GSM Clairefontaine paper, which works very, very well. And I've got 80 sheets in here, 45 sheets for 3 months worth of diary, day to a page, which for me works very, very well. And then the remaining sheets are blank paper and 3 or 4 sheets of to-dos. So that works really, really well. And I would say if anyone is interested in some sort of GTD thing, I would consider not having a rolling 12-month diary. I would consider maybe having just working 2 months ahead. And the test of that is to think to yourself, go through your 12-month diary right now, pause this video and say, right, I'm going to do what Neil suggests. I'm going to have a look right this second to see how many events I have jotted down in my own diary that are more than 60 days hence. And for me, there aren't any, not really, just 1 or 2, things like grandchildren's birthdays, but, it's not really a business related thing. So I have them in another notebook, another diary, which is a traditional diary. And I also have them on Apple Calendar, just in case I lose that diary, so belt and braces, as they say in the UK. But I would go by your own personal experience by looking right now through your diary and see how many events are actually in my diary, more than a certain number. And for me, I have made the decision to go with a 60 days hence and 30 days in arrears, so it's a total of a 3-month diary in here, and that gives me, in conjunction with 50 GSM paper, which I really, really like, it gives me the opportunity to use this as a day per page diary, which is working really, really well. So I would say that's how I would do it. I can't really add anything more, but hopefully there is an insight into the question that you have asked me. Thank you. Okay. This is another comment from the same gentleman, and I have to mention it because it will help others in the future. And this same gentleman says, thank you. I have a little setup that I'm currently using. I would love to show you. I bet you will love it. Do you have an email/Twitter I can get in touch with? And the answer is, sadly, no. And it's not because I'm being pedantic. It's because I don't want to have to spend less time making videos because I'm engaged in possibly long conversations with someone off YouTube. But this is what I said to the gentleman: make a short video and I'll have a look at it and let you know what I think. I'm sorry I cannot communicate via email because I would probably be opening the floodgates. I really would, and I'm so sorry about that, but I have to be fair to everyone. And I haven't used Twitter for years. Now, interestingly, someone else, and remember I was saying opening the floodgates, someone else today has also asked the same thing. They've been inspired by one of my earlier videos, my EDC videos. So this is from probably a member of the EDC community, who's obviously very keen to share with me their own version of my video, their thoughts. And again, I've said either make a video. If you're watching this and you make a video, draw my attention to it, and within reason, I'll have a look at it. If I've got 1,000 videos to look at, I probably won't be able to do that. But if it's one or two occasionally, absolutely fine. And then I will use the podcast to discuss this with everybody, because this is what I think. This is a public forum, for what it's worth. And one of the things that I'm keen to do is discuss these things in public. And if I was engaged in a single transaction between two people, me and someone else, via email, for instance, or Twitter, although I'm not on Twitter, I haven't used it for years, then it means that opportunity for others to seek inspiration from this other person's endeavours has been lost, because I can't share the details of that email with other people. But there are two options here for everyone out there, and I'm genuinely interested in other people's ideas. So I watch a lot of videos made by other people involved in paper-based productivity, and I think there's two obvious channels. One, make a short video, because we're in a democracy where it's if you are on YouTube already, by virtue of the fact you're watching this, then you are able to make your own video. And it doesn't matter whether it's done on the phone or whether it's an expensive studio setup or whatever. And I just use my phone. I have used GoPros, but I'm recording this on a phone, an iPhone right now. So it doesn't have to be. You probably have whatever you're using to watch this video right now. The chances are that you're able to make a video. So make a video, or if it's just a photograph, then use Instagram, and then follow me. Draw my attention to it, and I'll follow you back. So long as it's not loads of one picture of a filofax and 100 of cats or something, but I will look at it. So those are the two channels, and I'm very, very happy to engage with people, but not off YouTube, or not on a one-to-one basis. I can't do that, because it might take away the time I have to make other videos, and also I can't share it with people. So that interactivity between you and me will be lost, and no one will be able to see it. So that is the philosophy. I hope that's okay. But it's just interesting that two people have asked me to interact with them over the last 24 hours. Where they've been, they've been inspired by a couple of my videos. So I hope that explains it. Thank you very much. Okay. Someone on social media said, before retirement, I always, and this is really interesting, and this is what appealed to me. Before retirement, okay, so they're retired. Before retirement, I always insisted that graduates sitting in meetings with external surveyors and developers made sure to have a decent fountain pen and a wristwatch. I would also have a filofax with me up to 2022, but didn't insist on that for the graduates. There was a seriousness around the filofax user, a well-used model told of years of experience. Now, the years of experience and the well-used filofax in this case struck a chord with me, because I have recently mentioned about how I mean, I've been very open and honest about this, but let me show you my reply, because I think that it probably oh no, I can't do that. I can't do that because I've just taken an image. But basically, what I said in response was that I shared the gentleman's thoughts about a well-used filofax. Although, as we know, there are other binders available. Doesn't have to be specifically the filofax brand, although it's very, very common, especially here in the UK. And I, for those of you that are listening to this, okay, so I'm holding up a very, very well-used slimline 3CL, made of calf leather, probably in the early 80s, and it's a personal size. And I'm kind of getting used to, I'm building up my confidence about using one of these in public, because it's because I have had experience of ridicule many years ago, and that mud has stuck using a filofax in public. A4, not a problem. I've used an A4 filofax, a Lyndhurst, for many years, certainly up until I retired 10 years ago. But I had confidence because it didn't look like a filofax. It didn't look like that object of ridicule that has in the media and in comedy shows been, you know, it's a bit like mobile phones of a certain size, you know, the huge bricks that we used to use, and I've mentioned it earlier on in this podcast. They became an object of ridicule very, very quickly, and the standard personal size filofax also became an object of ridicule very, very quickly in the UK. There's a famous sketch, you will have to look it up on YouTube. It's from the TV series Only Fools and Horses. Just type in Only Fools and Horses and filofax, and you'll see what I mean. A similar thing happened to the Ford Probe car in another series, and sales dropped through the roof because of the imagery of the Ford Probe on a well-known TV series in the UK. So we like it or not, we are very sensitive, and I'm a little bit sensitive about this. I am starting to get back into using it because a filofax is so useful. I started with my Frankenfax. Is it here? No, it's not. You know, I don't. Thing is, when I start talking about stuff, I'm never sure what I'm going to talk about, and so I don't really have things specifically here. But I have like a homemade binder using a detachable board from a Mulberry wallet that is designed for personal size paper, and it doesn't look anything like a filofax. And I felt very comfortable about that. I am starting to feel comfortable about slimline binders, particularly older ones. And I'll give you an example. If you're listening to this, I'm about to hold up to the camera a Holborn personal size, which I absolutely love. And it's a slimline, but I feel a little bit self-conscious about using this in public, so I haven't. But I do use a really old battered slimline, and I definitely feel comfortable about using this, which doesn't look like a filofax to me. It just looks like a notebook, which is the one I'm holding up is a well-worn Guildford personal slimline. And I certainly have no qualms about using the mini size. So over the last few months, I've been using what I believe is the greatest filofax design ever made, the Guildford Mini Extra Slim. And several times I've asked them if they would consider making it again. And the response I've received is nothing. I've had no response whatsoever. So if any of you at FLB Group are looking, so can you please make one of these, because they're fantastic. They'll sell like hotcakes. Thank you very much. Thank you Filofax. Guildford Mini Executive, very, very similar thing. I think because they look like moleskins, I feel very confident. And finally, my plotter, which I'm in love with and I'm really enjoying. And I've effectively moved out of these and into this. I've got several mini binders from various manufacturers. But right now, the plotter works for me because of one thing. Perfect flatability from day one. And that works for me, and as it is probably the most important thing for me. So I discovered the plotter brands maybe a year ago, a little bit more than that, and I've been waiting to get hold of one secondhand. Just can't get them for love of money. Although interestingly, and I'm digressing here, I've obviously, if you're looking for something on eBay, you can set up an email alert. And I hadn't got anything for a year, and then I bought this. And I had to get it shipped over from Tokyo, from another eBay seller. So I had to pay about double what a citizen in Japan would typically pay for one of these. But it was worth it to me because I wanted to get hold of it and find out how good it was and share my enthusiasm with you guys if it transpired that it was as good as I thought it was. And it is, with one or two problems which I discussed in previous videos where I have modified this to make it easier on the pocket in terms of wear and tear, not money. So I am starting. The lure of being able to use a filofax in public is a strong one, but I really, really struggle with. I don't think I'll ever get past the fact that I would not want to be seen with, and I'm holding up a personal size Holborn. I wouldn't say, I mean, that we have a phrase in the UK, I wouldn't be seen dead in public. It's not as bad as that, but it is, because of my experience of being ridiculed using one of these. The river runs very deep when it comes to that. So I don't think I will ever get past the problem that I have psychologically of being able to use this. And Filofax, if anyone from Filofax is following this, I would say your over the last few years, your endeavours to kind of market Filofax as a fashion accessory for women doesn't help. I'm gonna repeat that. Marketing Filofaxes as fashion accessories for women doesn't help. It doesn't help. I would rather it be marketed as a business tool. And I know that that's a flight of fancy because hardly anyone uses them as business tools. And so I understand why they're marketed as, the marketing is as it is. So this is not a suggestion that they change tack and market them as business tools, because I appreciate the market will be very, very small. But I just the result of that is that I feel I would feel, and I'm holding up the Holborn Personal again. I would feel very, very self-conscious. So, just going back to what this gentleman said, he said, and I quote, "There was a seriousness around the filofax user, a well-used model told of years of experience." Now, I'm not the only one. I am sure I'm not the only one out there that agrees with this, but I seek out, and I'm for those that are listening, I'm holding up a well-used Gloucester, where it's made in an era where the leather is actually proper, what I call proper leather. I'm not an expert at leather, but this is what I call proper leather. There's no thin veneer of leather, what I call spray on leather, underneath several layers of cardboard and plastic and goodness knows what. It doesn't have like a plasticized coating. I know plastic coatings or plasticized coatings help with certain advantages like making it more waterproof, etc. But and easy to clean perhaps. But I'm not really a fan of plasticized leather with a several layers of man-made like cardboard. I have dissected a couple of binders in the past, and there does appear to be lots of cardboard under here. Not really a fan of that. And also the fact that when these become a bit worn, all you can see is the leather underneath. You can't. It doesn't reveal unsightly layers of cardboard or whatever. It looks like cardboard, doesn't it? But these are proper leather, and it. Although I wouldn't want to use this in public because it is that personal size, I reckon I might be able to get rid of it. I might be able to get round that block if I use this. I'm not sure. I have used the Heritage in public, and I think I feel more confident because it doesn't have the ubiquitous strap or the pen loop. It just looks like a moleskin, and so I have felt more confident using this. I've tried it psychologically. I can do it. I can just about do it. I can definitely do it with this, and I'm holding up the Guildford's slimline, and I can definitely do it with a vintage slimline from the 1980s, made in England. But it is a real thing for me. But just one final time, going back to what this gentleman said, and this is important, a well-used model told of years of experience, and that is, that's clearly what the gentleman is saying, that it has some gravitas. And he mentions the fact that they should have a fountain pen. He required newly qualified graduates to have a fountain pen and a wristwatch. That's quite old school, but I like that. I often wear a wristwatch unless I'm treading some mean streets, and then I do not have I don't wear a wristwatch, or at least on my pocket. And I have a really cheap Casio one if I'm doing photography in London. But I can understand that. I can understand the difference between someone carrying a new filofax that has that air of the owner being a newbie, as we say in the UK, or one that is well used. I personally, if I could have one filofax that I was using in a working environment, a working arena, I would want one that was at least distressed that had a bit of wear on it. I'll for those that are watching rather than reading, I haven't done anything to this yet. This is a very, very old filofax. I don't know how old, probably 1960s even, or 70s, but those of you out there who know more than me can advise me or correct me. But I think, and this one has had it's been stored poorly, and but it's well used. I am looking forward to getting this back into operation, because it imbues within me more pleasure using one that's old and distressed and scuffed. Has a bit of wear, has a bit of life in it, compared to a brand new. That this is box. This is a Holborn slimline, and it was, it doesn't have any gravitas at all, because it looks nice, don't get me wrong, but I personally think that filofaxes look much, much better. They have much more appeal when they have been used. That's my take on it. So I've been banging on about it for quite a while, but that's what that is my opinion, and I'm very opinionated, as you know. A viewer says, what hole puncher would you use or would you recommend for a Plotter Mini 5? Well, I just use a Rapesco adjustable, and I'm just showing for those that are viewing, it is an adjustable punch, very, very common. I think these cost about £10 on either Amazon or eBay. They're very, very reliable. And you can, if you slide the 6 punches together, then you can punch 5 holes by just aligning it by eye and punching accordingly. So I don't specifically have a 5-hole punch. I just use a 6-hole punch and just do it by eye, so that I'm punching 5 holes with a 6-hole punch. Okay, a viewer writes, I'm a big fan of making my own inserts, very cost effective and super customizable. I got a 500 sheet pack of 50 GSM Clairefontaine paper that will last me literally ages. Well, as everyone knows, I'm a big fan of the 50 GSM paper. All of us are limited to the amount of paper that we can fit into a filofax. Certainly that is especially critical if we're using a filofax with small rings, and as you know, I like small rings. For me, 11mm is the sweet spot, although I have recently been using as a long-term test a filofax Heritage Compact that has 17 or 18mm rings, but 11mm seems to work well for me. 13 does too, but they tend to be either the older ones, and indeed the Plotter range tend to be 11mm. But I noticed recently that the mini-sized binders that are in the current filofax range on their website are 15mm. Interesting. But this whole thing about Clairefontaine paper, now I do recommend it. I use it all the time. I wouldn't use it as a journal, but everything else, Clairefontaine 50 GSM paper. I am going to be doing some experiments with even thinner paper at some point, so watch that space, or watch this space. But I am a big fan of that Clairefontaine paper. If I can remember, I will leave a link in the description of this podcast. If you use it, I might make a little bit of commission, so I'll leave it up to you. Thank you if you do. Okay. A reader writes, hello, great video. I am one of those people who enjoy your long versions. exclamation mark. I was wondering if you've been down the rather lovely rabbit hole of inserts on Etsy. If not, there is a plethora of designs available. I'm not really into printed inserts. I'm aware of them, and I did use Etsy to buy next year's personal size diary, because back in January this year I was frustrated, and I mentioned the fact that if you are in business, and I'm not knocking Filofax, I'm sure there are other diary insert manufacturers that still haven't got this right either, but if you are actually in business making diaries, making diary inserts, why on earth are you not producing diary inserts or diaries 12 months in advance? You buy a diary or a diary inserts, and typically those diaries are 12 months, and yet people have to wait until they're 3 or 4 months in to using a diary before you can get the next year's diary. I just don't understand that as a concept at all. And so Etsy is your best friend. You cannot, in January, I was at a sad funeral in January this year, and I met up with one or two people and said, let's meet up, let's make this a day this time next year. And I can't jot it down in my diary because it's not available until later on in the year. Extraordinary. And the only thing I can think of is that they don't have the shelf space, or they don't want to. They don't want to start. I mean, I don't know. If I was making diary inserts, I would make sure that you can get inserts for the following year at the beginning of the current year. I just don't understand the concept of not understanding that. It is a mystery to me. It's a complete mystery. Anyway, I better get off my high horse about that. But inserts from Etsy, I mean, it's a fantastic thing. And many of these Etsy sellers are making their own inserts, and this supports businesses in the UK. So I'm all for that. The only thing I would say is, me personally, I'm not. I mean, I have tried. I mean, for instance, I did get when I bought recently my Filofax Heritage, which I'm holding up now. It did come with a week on 2 pages diary, and I started using that, and then I thought, no, it's just not working for me. So what I did was I went back to a week on 2 pages in a mini size, and then that wasn't enough space, and then coinciding with my acquisition, it took me a year to get hold of one of these. I decided to go for a day per page, and just write my own. Just write my own. Also, the other advantage I have with making my own is I can choose the GSM and the paper quality. I don't have to conform to a manufacturer who is arguably choosing paper on the basis of, typically the basis of cost, whereas making my own inserts, I can design my own and choose the paper on the basis of how that paper works for me. And Clairefontaine 50 GSM paper works for me. It's a bit rough and ready, as you know, but for me, it's good. It's good. The other thing, and I'm just going to, if it's in here, is it in here? Let me see. Okay, so I'll have to read these out because some people will be reading this. So I was looking at Filofax mini size as a day per page, and one's available. And I decided that when you look at it, it's so cluttered that it wouldn't give me it wouldn't give me a proper amount of real estate. So first of all, you've got the year, then the month of the year in multiple languages, which, I don't need that. Then the actual week number, and then the day of the month in multiple languages, then lined appointments, which aren't 12, they aren't 24 hour. They're only a certain time conforming to certain office hours. Then there's a calendar at the bottom, then the number of days completed, then the days to go before the end of the year. Then there's a filofax logo on not just one page at the beginning, but every single page is taken up by a filofax logo. I mean, can you imagine? Oh, I don't know. I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything else. Then there's a huge amount of margin space wasted. And then finally, almost extraordinarily, given the fact that for many people, a Saturday and a Sunday are busier than Mondays to Fridays, you've got restricted space for weekends, particularly on a Sunday. So you got all that stuff, and I'm showing up a whole list of all the things that you will find on a filofax mini-sized day per page pack of inserts. It doesn't leave much space to write anything down, really. So with mine, I have this, and I'm showing a blank page in mini size. There is approximately 3 times as much space on my page, my blank page, to write things down as there is in a pre-printed filofax day per page insert with all that extra stuff written down. And when it comes to Sunday, you've actually got about 12 times as much space here as there is on it. So it just doesn't work for me. Printed inserts, lovely. And it keeps, I do appreciate that some people like order and it looks nice and they're pre-cut. And also the fact that if you're earning a certain amount of money, it's much cheaper to go for pre-printed inserts than making your own. But I personally love this lovely Clairefontaine 50 GSM paper. And it has a kind of used look to it, like a well thumbed look from day one, because each page is slightly, they're hand cut, so they're slightly different. The holes are punched ever so slightly out of alignment, and I like that. I like the text block, as they call it. That just looks, and I'm holding up my plotter Mini 5 with almost exactly 80 sheets of 50 GSM paper. And that, I personally like the aesthetics. If you are watching this rather than reading, I hope you are, because it just looks nice. It has a certain Harry Potter spelling book look to it, as my daughter or my grandchildren would say, because my oldest grandchild is well into her Harry Potter at the moment. It just has that look of authority. So yes, the answer is I'm aware of Etsy. I do buy the occasional thing from Etsy. I think the sheer range of inserts is fabulous, because that was always an issue, wasn't it, with filofax, where the thing that added most value, in my opinion, to the filofax range was the sheer breadth of inserts that they produced. And they threw the baby out with the bathwater when they got rid of all that. Especially, and I think that was a bad move, especially since now we are into print on demand. They don't have to have lots of shelf space taken up with slow moving insert packs. They could just print them on demand. I mean, they certainly produce at the moment a thing called Design Your Own, which is controversial because of the QR codes, but the fact that you can you can opt out of the QR codes because many people perhaps, maybe most, I don't know, do not like the QR codes. You can choose not to have that. You can choose what they call the classic print with no QR codes, and that is a print on demand service now. So I do sometimes think that they could easily incorporate that in terms of printing a pack of inserts from yesteryear. So you could choose the colour. I actually personally like the salmon pages, which are no longer available. You can't buy packs of salmon paper, but that's my favourite colour. Yellow is one I like as well. I would love to buy packs of inserts from filofax for certain specific uses. But my main thing is just making my own out of Clairefontaine paper, chop it up into 8 sheets out of a sheet of A4. And of course, one thing I would say is, I think filofax are similar prices to plotter, but I'll just say this: in order to fill this with plotter paper, not mentioning the fact that you can't get it in the UK, so you have to pay not only the price of the paper, but also you have to pay to have it shipped halfway around the world. That's not good for the environment. Clairefontaine paper comes from France. I don't know where Etsy producers get their paper, but we've heard of food miles. Well, we need to consider insert miles as well. So I just don't know where filofax paper is made, but Etsy paper, who knows? But it's something that people are becoming more and more aware of. But from a cost point of view, to fill this with 80 sheets of plotter paper would cost me £6.80 plus the shipping, which is about 15 quid. But just supposing they delivered it by Pony Express free of charge to my door, it would still cost, along the Silk Route from Japan or China, all the way across Europe, and then get on a boat, and then it's a flight of fancy. But the postage and the shipping and the insert miles or the paper miles are a problem for me. But it would cost 80 sheets of this would be about £6.80. Whereas total cost to me to fill this with 80 sheets of hand cut paper, 20 pence. 20 pence. So about 25 cents. And so the cost is the difference between printed inserts and ones you just make yourself is absolutely enormous. If you use a lot of paper over the year, if you're spending maybe £1,000 a year on pre-printed inserts, as I would be if I was using pre-printed inserts, because I use a lot of paper, that would I can think of better ways to spend my money. So the answer is yes, but ... Okay, a reader says most manufacturers offer pages that are far narrower than the ring binder width. That's always been a bit of a mystery to me. I'll give you an example. Let's have a look. Let's see. So here's 2 filofaxes, both personal size, using the same paper. One is a current model and one was made perhaps back in the 80s to a design that hadn't changed much for decades. But the top one is a Gloucester 6CL, so it has 6 pockets made of calf leather, and the bottom one is a Vanderspec, a standard non-customised Vanderspec. So you can see they've got a similar amount of paper, and they're using the same width of paper, i.e. the standard or personal size, but there is a huge difference, and this is very, very common. If you look at something like, this is a Vanderspec, but if you look at something like a filofax Norfolk, I mean, they in terms of the width, they are huge. They are huge. I'm not a fan of pen loops and straps. I prefer this size. It is the way of it. It is a design, but I share what the viewer is saying, that there is some frustration there. I can get this in a jacket pocket. I cannot get this Vanderspec in a jacket pocket. I mean, this is nice, and I bought this out of curiosity to see what the quality was like, and I was amazed at how good the quality was. But that's for another day, that topic of conversation. But I must admit, I do like binders that are almost not flush, because I think most people would need to have some space for some tabs, some dividers and the tabs. So this is perhaps ideal for me, even though I don't use dividers. Occasionally I do, but I'm toying with the idea. I'm so pleased with, the slimline design. I mean, this is a modern day filofax Heritage Compact, and this is a filofax Guildford slimline or compact, I suppose, and they are very, very similar in width. I quite like the slimline versions. If it's a choice between having, and I do appreciate that some of you, especially you ladies, like everything in one place. This is perfect, isn't it? This is perfect, because you're not going to be putting this in a jacket pocket. It might be in your bag or on your desk at home or in the office. Perfect to have everything like that. And, if you like pen loops, then it's best to have two, so that you can have a spare pen or two different types of pen. Perfect. But me personally, rather than have one big filofax, if I'm going to carry, if I want extra space of paper, I tend to carry two slimlines. In fact, I'm actually at the moment carrying, because I'm moving house, I'm carrying no fewer than 5 binders. Three slimlines plus, it's downstairs, plus a filofax Sherwood, which is similar sort of size to this. And then my plotter Mini 5, but that will change. It's just that I'm very, very busy at the moment, and I'm moving around effectively with a mobile office, with a laptop and a phone and 5 binders. But yeah, I totally agree. I might actually, and this is between you and me, I'm not doing it right now because I don't want to order something from Japan and then it arrives here when I'm no longer here. Anyway, I will be buying another plotter. I wasn't going to, but I am going to buy another plotter. But I'm toying with the idea of buying the narrow version, which effectively is similar to the personal size that we all know and love, although plotter call it the Bible size. But there's a size called a narrow size, which is the same height from here to here, but from here to here the width is 1.5 centimeters less. And as a result of that, and it's a proprietary size that Plotter do, but I love that form factor because of its pocketability. If you use personal size inserts, they stick out a bit, from what some people tell me, about 0.5 centimeters. But the way I'm thinking about it is, what appeals to me about that is the fact that I don't have to conform to personal size inserts, and I'm going to be using it. I'm tempted to have it as a project book, but it's going to be slightly narrower, and I can literally cut my personal size paper, which I just cut from sheets of A4. I can easily cut them to fit the narrow size, so that those pages will be roughly 0.5 centimeters less in width, and so I can easily transfer them to this binder or this binder or this binder, or put them in my filing cabinet. It's going to be neither here nor there with regards to width. But with the plotter narrow size, notwithstanding, bearing in mind I don't really use, this is my project book, I don't have any dividers, because all these pages are individual projects listed in alphabetical order, and I don't need any dividers. Like, you don't need dividers looking something up in the dictionary. You don't have A, B, C, D, E. You just look them up because they're alphabetical. So I don't really need any dividers in a project book. And so I'm thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have, I mean, I love the sort of the rough hewn nature of the textbook with individually cut pages. Wouldn't it be nice if they were absolutely flush with a narrow sized model from Plotter? So that's my idea. Whether or not I'm going to do that, I'm not sure, but I just thought I'd share that notion with you right now. Okay, I think I'm done here. I have only done I've only answered a few questions, and I've digressed, and then my digressions have turned into digressions, so it's been a bit of a rambling podcast here. Some thoughts, some questions answered, some responses, and some invitations to communicate with me if you wish, via your own channel and via your own Flatability. Oh my goodness, dear oh dear. So I'm clearly it's not a power cut, but I've just knocked I've knocked something in the studio, so I'm going to leave it there. Actually, I should really put that on. No, it's all I think I've probably knocked out this is a ceiling light, but I've knocked out the power. Yeah, I've knocked out the power because my socket light is off. Okay, no worries. So I will leave it there, and then till my next video. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.